Ahead on the Bleav in Steelers show, we'll tell you what all the offseason moves means for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now that free agency has settled somewhat, I'm Mark Bergin, joined as always by Steelers legend number 24, Ike Taylor. IT, I'm in the new digs. I'm feeling good this morning. How are you this morning, my man?
I'm good. How you doing this morning?
Fantastic. I got to give a shout out, Ike, college hunks, Ulysses, Justin, Jesse, tremendous help getting settled into the new home here in Raleigh, North Carolina. But Ike, free agency well underway. I want to get right into it. Steelers signing your guy, Patrick Peterson, and filling the void. Cam Sutton's now with the Lions. Patrick Peterson, the wily veteran, 8-time Pro Bowler, now a Pittsburgh Steelers cornerback. I want to get your thoughts, and we'll go from there about this signing for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Just dealing with Patrick Peterson, of course, everybody know, or now y'all should know that Pat Pete, that's Brian McFadden, my former teammate, Brian McFadden, cousin. I remember Patrick Peterson coming down to Coach Tom Shaw at the time. He was in high school. And I'm like, B-Mac, what college does this dude go to? He was like, nah, bro, he's just a senior in high school. I was like, man, this dude body built like LeBron. You sure he's just a senior? Fast forward, him going to LSU, he did what he did. He did what he needed to do at LSU. And then he wound up going to the Arizona Cardinals in his history. So it's just good for me. I wound up texting Pat Pete, like, welcome to the family, bruh. And he gave me a love shout out. But just having a guy like Patrick Peterson, an 8-time Pro Bowler, who's now in his later years in the league, it's going to bring everything Joe Hayden did to that secondary. It's going to bring veteran leadership at the cornerback position. And the guy just went to the Pro Bowl last year. So every time you see Pat Pete, every time I think of Pat Pete, I think of a shutdown corner who has a big frame.
Yes, Ike, 33 years old. And I think you stole my line. I think they'll use him exactly like how they did with Joe Hayden. Keep him on the left side. Most quarterbacks are right-handed. He's coming off a season where he played mostly zone coverage with the Vikings, adept at reading right-handed quarterbacks' tells and tendencies. Playing mostly zone coverage with the Vikings, he can play man as well. But if you could pick up those tells and tendencies, that leads to turnover creation. Patrick Peterson, 5 interceptions in the 2022 season, Ike. That was the second highest total of his career.
Well, they say the more you can do. And I think people forget that Patrick Peterson was an outstanding punt returner. So when you got a corner who can also return punts, they say the more you can do. So that's what he can do, man. He got a lot of tools in his toolbox, but Pat Pete, man, he's a pro's pro. You ain't got to worry about nobody getting in trouble. You ain't got to worry about nobody doing anything off the field that's bad. All you got to do is just put Pat Pete. So he's a play-in guy. You put him anywhere in that secondary, you put him in any team, he's going to make it happen. I'm just so glad right now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers because we definitely was looking for somebody, and we wound up getting the guy we want. And if you listen to Pat Pete, he said he always did want to play with Coach Tomlin.
Yeah, Ike, and when we talked about this during the regular season, he had a game where he intercepted the Bills twice in a game, and it won a close one between Minnesota and Buffalo. He had 2 interceptions in that game. You mentioned his roots coming up when he went to LSU, wearing the number 7 at LSU, to where you've got to be somebody if you're wearing that number.
Yeah, you got to be that guy. Honey Badger, Pat Pete. Once you put that 7 on at LSU, you special. You different. You know what I'm saying? You got a God-given talent. And that's Pat Pete, man. I just remember Pat Pete in high school. I was in awe in high school, just seeing the way that dude moved, how big he was, how agile he was. Then him doing what he did at LSU, I was like, man, this dude here for sure the real deal. Now we see what he did in the NFL. But I'm just so glad, Mark, we got Pat Pete to the Steelers. I think it's going to be a good fit. And again, Coach Tomlin. Every time you hear about somebody doing the interview with Coach Tomlin, they always say it just feels good. It feels real. So Coach T knows exactly what he's doing, especially when it comes down to the secondary guys coming from Tampa, going to Minnesota, 16 years later for the Pittsburgh Steelers, no losing season. And what's your specialty? The secondary. So it makes sense.
The number 7 at LSU, Ike, is like the cape for Superman. Now, Peterson will wear the number 20 with the Steelers, given the respect for Big Ben, future Hall of Famer, and everything, too. I know that was a little bit of it's like a mini controversy in the 412, Ike, but he will wear number 20, just given what 7 means specifically to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, hey, Pat, we love you, but you can't get 7, bro.
All right, Ike, we got to tell our listeners and viewers about today's sponsor, BetOnline.ag. They'll take care of any of your gambling needs. NFL draft is next month, Ike. My bracket for March Madness is just in shambles. But if you want to place a bet on any of the sports action, BetOnline.ag will take care of those needs.
Any sport, anytime, 24/7. Make sure y'all go to BetOnline.ag.
And you can see the link in the bottom right-hand corner if you're watching on your phone or your TV right now. Use our promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts. We'll keep this rolling. Steelers getting two new linebackers, Cole Holcomb and Elandon Roberts. Now, Steelers cut Myles Jack, something I told you could happen. The Steelers will save $8 million doing that. But Ike, to me, this leads to the splash plays. And it was something that they've lacked at the linebacker position, which is typically a position of strength for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Ike, too, Cole Holcomb, he wore the green dot on his helmet in Washington, which leads me to believe he's an effective communicator. He knows where guys are going on the field. And this, to me, you lose Brian Flores as a coach this offseason, but you're trying to fortify and solidify that front seven. And that's what these moves of Cole Holcomb and Elandon Roberts to the Steelers mean to me.
Yeah, what you getting with Cole is you getting a football player. You lose Brian Flores, now he's the DC for the Minnesota Vikings, but you're getting not a DC, but you're getting a coach on the field in Cole Holcomb. And if you just look at what he did for the Washington Commanders, all he did was ball out in a few games. So what I mean by a few games, they was doing stat for stat, him and Devin Bush, and Coleman just always knew where the ball was. When you want to talk about getting in drops, getting in zones, picking the ball off, having to feel for where the quarterback is going, that's what he's doing. When you want to talk about blitzing a guy, getting to the quarterback, getting sacks, creating controversy, that's what Cole is doing. When you want to talk about wearing that green dot, and the only time you wear that green dot is you got to get everybody lined up, and the defensive coordinator understands you're going to be right 90% of the time. That's Cole Holcomb. So when you're looking at Cole, man, you're looking at a guy who's just a football player. And when you have him on the field as a defensive coordinator, you know he's going to get everybody lined up by the way he make plays. So you talk about splash plays. Coach T talk about splash plays. He's a splash play guy. So it's a swap for a swap. You lose a DC, you wind up gaining somebody who's a coach on the field, and Cole Holcomb. He just so happened to be able to make all the plays. He can drop in his own, he can cover, he can blitz, and he's going to get everybody lined up. Everybody can't do that, but Cole can. When you talk about Elandon Roberts, you're talking about some depth at that linebacker position. So, and that's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers needed. So, Pittsburgh just, I sat back, I haven't texted or talked to Coach T or Omar, but I'm just sitting back and I'm like, man, I'm giving A's. I'm giving them A's in the free agency on what they're doing, because right now, beefing the lineup, making sure you have depth at that linebacker position, getting guys who can fit the system. I'm looking at Omar, man. I'm like, Omar, you doing your thing. I'm looking at Coach T like, y'all on the same page.
Like with Roberts, 10 tackles for loss last season. Now let's combine the production of Devin Bush, Myles Jack, Robert Spillane. They had a combined 9 total. So you're talking about one player with the production of 3 players. Now, I get that schemes are different. I get that the talent around each of those players is different from team to team. But again, it's those splash plays, those difference-making plays that can win and lose ball games is what you need from the linebacker position, Ike. And I look back at like when you played and you think about, James Ferrier and Larry Foote and all of the stud linebackers, going way back in the day with Ham and Lambert. What's made this franchise so successful is the linebacker play. On the offensive side of the ball, it seems to be wide receiver, but the linebacker play has always been so special with the Steelers. And I hope that these moves help you get back to that point. Now, that's not to take away anything from what Myles Jack did this last season. Look, the run defense was a lot better. Devin Bush will have a new roster, I'd imagine. He hasn't been quite the same player since his injury, what started out as a promising career. And then Ike as well, I want to bring up this point too. I want to pour one out for Robert Spillane. I will never forget that goal line hit, that collision one-on-one with Derrick Henry a few seasons back against the Titans.
Yeah, shout out to Robert Spillane. Spillane, he's just an old school football player himself. But when you want to talk about Robert's 10 tackles for loss, when he typing his address on his mail or he giving somebody something, He type in, I live in your backfield, because that's exactly where that man live at. He lives in the opposing team's offense backfield. So the fact that you getting one guy combined with two guys from what we had in the previous season, that says a lot about his instinctive play on knowing how to live in the backfield, so say.
And one other thing too, coming over, he played for the Dolphins the last few years, is also a member of the Patriots, a 2-time Super Bowl champion. So we talk about the veteran leadership, the presence of Patrick Peterson, bringing a winner into the locker room and knowing what it takes to achieve the highest success in the league. I don't think we can put enough on that, whether it's Peterson, whether it's Roberts, whether it's Holcomb with his communicating ability, again, having the green dot on his helmet. It's just that experience that other players don't have, regardless of how talented that they are in this league.
Yeah, they're Pittsburgh loading up quietly. Pittsburgh loading up quietly on the offense and the defensive side, but you can't put a price on experience. You can't put a price on a pro's pro, and I'm talking about Patrick Peterson. You can't put a price on losing the defensive coordinator but gaining a coach on the field and Cole Holcomb. And with Elandon Roberts, you can't put a price on. I mean, you can, but what I mean by it's good to have guys like them three I just named with Roberts living in the backfield, because you got to have a knack for getting to the quarterback or making plays in the backfield. And that's exactly what we do. So you got three different people at two different positions, but all of them been very successful, and the stats have proven it. With Patrick Peterson getting the 5 interceptions last year, Cole Holcomb getting interceptions and getting guys lined up and living in the backfield, having sacks I think he had 4.5 sacks. And you're getting Elandon Roberts, who just lives in the backfield, period. So Pittsburgh, so far, so good, man. They've been doing their thing in the free agency.
All right, Ike, we get to go to the trenches, the big uglies up front in the Steelers front office, bringing in 2 former Eagles offensive linemen in Isaac Seumalo, Nate Herbig. And Ike, we're talking about a Philadelphia Eagles team this past season that set the record in NFL history, most rushing touchdowns, regular season, postseason combined. So now the Steelers get not 1, but 2 former Eagles linemen. Talk about dominating the line of scrimmage, adding depth in the trenches to get Najee Harris in the running game going. These might be the most underrated signings of everyone we've talked about, because at the very least, it gives the Steelers more depth up front to get this offense rolling in the 2023 season with how young the skill position players are.
Man, when you describe these 2 offensive linemen, the first thing either a defensive guy say or another head coach from another team say is nasty. And when you got linebackers that are nasty, that's good. So, hey, Kenny Pickett, you see what I'm doing for you? I got you 2 new bodyguards who had a drop of a dime. If somebody look at you crazy, they punch them in the face. Hey, Najee, you see what we doing? We got you 2 big blockers. If you looked at the Philadelphia Eagles, they just led the league in rushing. So, man, like I say, man, Pittsburgh just hitting. I think you said it best, Mark. Quietly, low key. Them 2 between Isaac and Nate, them 2 probably the best 2 tandems when it comes down to picking up offensive linemen in their free agency. And this is exactly what Kenny Pickett needed. This is exactly what Najee needed. So when you got something like that, man, like we say, man, you ain't cooking on that electric stove. You cooking with that gas stove. And you know, when you cook with that gas stove, that food tastes better.
Yeah, Ike, and what I noticed too, Andy Weidel in the front office, he's bringing in his former Eagles players, and it's like, I like it because of the success.
Yeah. Yeah, shout out. Andy doing his thing.
Yeah.
Going on with his old ties, getting his old ties, selling the dream. Come over there to Pittsburgh. Might as well come.
Ike, we have 2 more signings to get to. Larry Ogunjobi re-signs 3-year contract, more than $28 million. And Damontae Kazee, they'll pair him with Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end at the safety position. And Ike, my overall thought with this, what the Steelers are doing is they've positioned themselves when they draft at 17, at 32, and 49. And they're going to do this regardless, but they can now draft the best player available in each of those slots. And they draft that way regardless of the year. But like going into this offseason, it was like, well, they've got some holes they need to address. Let's see how they approach free agency. Then that'll signal what Pittsburgh ends up doing in the draft. You've at least filled some of the holes that you need. And now whenever they pick, it's not, well, we have to draft this position because it's a position of need. It's who's the best available guy. We'll add him. We'll plug and play to what we've already got. That to me is what all of this signals from a big picture standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, the signing of Larry, his second year. So we saw what he was doing towards the end of the year when he was healthy. When you get Cam and Larry together, TJ, it's going to be real scary, you know. So what I did like about Larry, he's another defensive lineman who lived in the backfield, you know. So Larry, when he was healthy, he lived in the backfield. This is going on his second year, so he'll be way more comfortable with Coach T and the system they're running. Damontae Kazee, I've always been a fan. Always been a fan of Damontae Kazee. Short in stature, but plays big. And when he came back off of injury, Minka felt a little bit, in my mind, Minka felt a little bit more comfortable back there in that secondary. And them boys made plays back there together, especially during the crunch time when Coach T was trying to solidify his 9 losing seasons. That's exactly what he did. So, man, another two free agency signings that the Pittsburgh Steelers needed to do, and they wind up getting the job done.
Ogunjobi had to happen, Ike, because Cam Hayward's going to be 34. Tyson Alualu's even older. And that's one thing where it's just like, what are you going to do to ensure your depth, to ensure that up front we don't see what happened in 2021 when you're dead last in the league in rushing. So the Ogunjobi signing, I liked it when, look, he failed a physical, didn't go to the Bears, and it was to the Pittsburgh Steelers' benefit a season ago. And it's a guy who's accustomed to playing in the division because he started his career with the Browns, then he went to the Bengals, and now he's in Pittsburgh. So I'd say he's pretty accustomed to playing in the AFC North, Ike.
Yeah, you know, he just live in the North, and he just put the AFC in front of him. That's all it is. He liked the cold weather, obviously, because he could have. He was at Chicago, failed the physical at Chicago. That's another cold city. So everywhere he been, it's just been cold. So I'm just gonna start calling him the Alaska man because he don't mind the cold weather at all.
I know you're a little bit limited in what you could say in terms of draft strategy, but here's how this reads to me is, again, you can draft best available. Would like to see a defensive lineman. Still would love to see young stud offensive tackle to help fortify the offensive line. Getting a young corner, I think, would be wise too, because a young corner would be able to learn from the expertise of Patrick Peterson, who's played at the highest level that you can at the position. You're talking about a future Hall of Fame player, in my opinion. So those would be 3 areas of need, but it's not dire as it was at the start of free agency. So it's who's available when you're picking in those positions. Depending on how each of the players grade, you can then go from there. But those are 3 position groups that I see. But again, it's, you know, we still have a lot to figure out between now and April 27th, Ike, too. And, you know, again, I mentioned possibly restructuring Mitch Trubisky's contract because you like him in the locker room and the development with Kenny Pickett. Do you want to pay a backup that much money? At the same time, Kenny Pickett had his concussion issues. He had 2 last season, to where you might need a backup to come in for a game or 2 and to make sure that there's not a drop off at the quarterback position. But Ike, I'm a lot more optimistic than I was compared to the start of free agency because it's, man, this roster's got a lot of holes. But then again, I go back to this. You can approach the draft to where whichever guy you want to pick, you're in a position to where it makes sense now because you don't have those glaring needs compared to when you did a week ago at the start of free agency.
If anybody know anything about Cash Money Records from New Orleans, and Birdman always rubbing his hands because he's pondering his next plan, this is exactly what Coach T and Omar Khan is doing. Now they just solidified what they needed to do in the free agency. They just looking at a draft board like, who do we want? You know, so they're in a very good position right now. Art, and they put themselves in this position. So we shall see what happens in the draft. I will be in the war room. I am very excited, but I can't say too much. But we will get what we need in the draft, now that they as in us, we don't have to go and reach because we did everything we needed to do so far in this free agency for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
We're going to have to talk about these war room stories. I understand some things need to stay behind closed doors, but get your boy inside. I'll be a fly on the wall. No problem, Mike.
I got you, Mark.
It'll be like you see in Ocean's 11 where the guy sneaks into the vault and it's just like, you won't even know that I'm there. I won't say a peep, Mike.
I got you. I'm going to talk to him.
All right. For Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergin. Thanks so much for watching the Bleav in Steelers show. Ike, we have many thanks in order. Our producers over at Brinks TV. I want to thank the Bleav Network. Today's sponsor, BetOnline.ag. And I want to thank the listeners and the viewers of the show. And Ike, thank you to you as well. You're the absolute best. Your insight, your analysis, your entertainment for the people, Ike. It is very much appreciated. But take off if I'm missing out on anything else here, Ike.
Now, I want to thank you as well, Mark. I want to thank BetOnline.ag, 365, 24/7, whatever sport y'all want to bet on. Make sure y'all go to BetOnline.ag. I want to thank the Bleav in Steelers podcast. God, thank Brinks TV for, making us look so good and professional online. So I want to thank everybody who's been tuning in and following. Make sure y'all give us a 5-star rating. Just how you like your hotels and your dinners. You want to go to these 5-star hotels. You want to go to these 5-star restaurants. You're looking at a 5-star social media platform of marketing on the Bleav in podcast. So just want to appreciate everybody for just tuning in and viewing and listening to us.
Hey, before we go, I picked Marquette to win the tournament. They are out of the tournament. Who did you have in March Madness now that we're into the Sweet 16? My bracket is trash.
Honestly, I didn't do a bracket. I'm so into this draft.
Okay.
Watching corners and watching guys and just reevaluating. So I'm just locked in with this draft, Mark. So I haven't been paying attention. Like I do some snippets. I'll look and see, but I didn't do a bracket and I haven't really been paying attention. But I have been traveling a lot. Oh, yeah. Shout out to Uncle Prime sitting over there at Colorado. Showed nothing but love when we got over there between me and his family, Lex Kenny and my crew. Shout out to Uncle Prime for that. Oh my gosh, man, it's just so good being around the unicorn. You just don't understand. Shout out to you, Mark, again. And shout out to everybody who's just been tuning in, man. We appreciate the support.
For anyone who's wondering, Uncle Prime is Deion Sanders, and you can check that out on Ike's Instagram feed. We will include that in the show notes of today's show if you want to see some behind-the-scenes footage from Boulder. For Ike Taylor, I'm Mark Bergin. Thank you so much for watching the Bleav in Steelers show. We'll see you next week. Until then, take care and so long, everybody.
2 times.